Hello and welcome to this week's webinar. We'll get started now. This session is around top tips and tricks from PowerBI.Tips, and we're actually going over the 2019 best blog posts and items that we've done from the website. So these are just a bunch of really good, helpful tips and tricks. Introducing myself, my name is Mike Carlo. I'm an MVP from the data platform. I'm the creator of PowerBI.Tips website. So if you visit the website or use the content that I create, thank you very much. I appreciate it. If you haven't heard of it, I own a website. You should check it out. So it's PowerBI.Tips. If you want to get a hold of me, I am at Twitter at PowerBI.Tips or at Michael R. Carlo. Those are the Twitter handles that I monitor. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free to as well. So LinkedIn, Michael Carlo. All right, so I'm not going to do a bunch of slides today. It's a lot about demos, so we're just going to jump right into the tool. So let me escape out of here. We're going to jump right over to Power BI Desktop right away, and we'll get going. So here we are, Power BI Desktop. Let's start off with our #1 most hit blog article from 2019. So this blog article was actually made by Steve Campbell. He's a writer that we have on the Power BI Tips channel, and this is a demo of kind of what's going on here with this tool trick. And it's basically dynamic visuals using buttons. So I have a visual card down here. It's a bar chart. And what we can do is we can actually have buttons that trigger actions or bookmarks behind the scenes. But if I hold Control, because I'm in desktop, holding Control, clicking on volume, you note that here it changes some of the data. And then the shading of the bar is now grayed out a little bit. So it's kind of indicating that you selected this volume placement on the page. If I click dollars, the numbers now change, and now you're seeing dollars on the chart, as well as now you're highlighting the context of the button. And then finally, if you click on margin, you can now see that margin's also formatted as well. So what we're doing here mechanically we're actually using a slicer on the side of the window. So as I adjust the slicer, you can see that it's conditionally formatting the backgrounds of each of the buttons as I navigate through all the different items on this slicer. Now, you don't technically need the slicer to be available on the page to see it. It's kind of a mechanics thing here so you can see how it's working. So I go over here to the view ribbon, and if I go to the selection panel here, I can actually hide the slicer by turning it off, this little icon here. It's over here on the little icon eye. So if I click it off and it puts a little slash through it, it makes it go away. So even though the slicer is not here on the page, I can actually still click through the different elements on the page, and the slicer still behaves and slices the data for me. So let's go through, and now we're going to step into how to build this. So we're going to move over here to this page. There's a couple things you need to make this work. A couple things I want to point out here is in this tutorial, we're actually using something called a disassociated table. So I'm going to go over here to the relationships view on this report, and you'll see, I don't need this guy here. Let's get rid of that relationship, delete him. I don't know why he's there. If we go back over here to the relationships view, I'm controlling data inside my sales table here on the left. So this is where I'm controlling. And I have this other table here, control table, which has a numerical ID and a data type or a text type. But there's no relationships between them. So they're just two independent tables that are a part of the data model. So if we go back over here to our report page, we can see these tables, and let's take a quick look at what's inside the control table. So here's all the information that's in the control table. I have the type, which is like our measure or calculation. So in here, we're using a sum on dollars, a sum on margin, and maybe a sum on volume. And then we apply a numerical ID to each of the different type of calculations that we're going to want to evaluate or express. So once we have this table built, and we just built this by using the add data, so go home ribbon, and if you use the enter data button, we're able to enter our own data into this data model. So that's what I was using to make this table. And there's my little control table here on the right-hand side. That's my table. So now that we have this, we can now go and explore what kind of measure do we need in order to allow us to select different items. So on the left side here in this DAX calculation, we're using this selected calculation measure. So what it's doing is a switch statement. We're using a function called selected value, and we're selecting whatever you've selected with your cursor or in the slicer. It's returning the value or the number ID from the control table. So if I select value 1, it'll return that value. If I select multiple items or don't have anything selected, the very bottom item here is like a default mode, right? So if I have two things selected, it defaults back to just showing the volume calculation. Because in this case, we wouldn't really want to show margin and dollars or volume and dollars added together. It just wouldn't make sense. So for each of these expressions, we're actually doing a calculation. So you can see here, when we select the item number 1 from the control table, it can look up, hey, this value is selected as a number 1. Oh, I need to do this calculation. So then it explicitly calculates out and says this is the sum of the sales volume. So these are the calculations that we're using in this formula. So to go a little bit further on how this DAX equation is working, I have a simple bar chart here. On the x-axis, I have the ID column, so just a numerical ID or a categorical ID, it could be anything. And if I want, I could just add in the dollars here. So if I add the dollars into the value section by clicking and dragging over to dollars, you'll see right away we get some bars. And so this is summing the dollars by each of these different categories down below. And if I wanted to change this, typically I'd have to go remove the dollars column, and I'd have to add a different column like margin and place that on the chart. Then the chart would show margin by ID. Now the interesting thing here that we can use is when we use this new selected calculation measure, we're able to toggle between different measures by selecting on things. So if I remove this margin calculation now, and now we're going to grab the measure. So over here on the far right, we have selected calculation. If we grab that and bring it to the value section, now we are not specifying exactly which column we're going to calculate. We're using the DAX expression to help us define that. So now what we can do is we can add a slicer on the page. So let's go over here and add a slicer. And now that I have a slicer on the page, let's resize this a bit so it's not so large. And now we'll go to our control table, and then we're going to add our number ID to the control table. Now this is coming in as a range selection. So if I click the drop down arrow up here on the top, so we click this little guy at the top, drop him down, turn it into a list. And now if I select different elements, so if I select the number 2, it filters my control table down to a single item. Because it is a single item, it goes over to the DAX expression and then says, hey, I'm going to do the sum of dollars. So this is my dollars calculation. So now I can toggle between these different items. Great. So now we have an ability to control what's in the chart against some numerical values. We're getting closer. So the next thing we'll do is we're going to insert a button. So I'll add a button. I'm just going to add a blank button up here at the top of the page. So this is going to be my button now. And let's make it a little bit larger. And so for this one, we're going to add some text. So I'm highlighting the button. I'm going over to the other side of the page and to the button text area. We're going to toggle that on, open that section up. And so for the default state under the button text, we're just going to add something simple like volume. So this is going to be our volume calculation, volume here. And let's make it a bit larger. I'm going down to the text size here and increasing that slightly so it's a bit bigger so we can read it. Okay. Now, the next thing, we've got to be able to detect what you're clicking on. And then based on what you're clicking on, we want to format the background of this button. So this is where we're going to use bookmarks. So what we also can do here is we know that volume in our equation is the item number 1. So value, numerical value number 1 is what our volume calculation should be. So if I click the 1 here in the slicer, that should be our volume calculation. So now we're going to go back over to the volume button. I'm going to go over to the background. And this is a super big trick. So I'm going to show you this. This is something to know about. So if I start here, right, you'll notice in this area that in this little area right here, there is no 3 little dots. You're looking for the ellipsis, those 3 dots. There's nothing there. However, when I put my cursor close to it, you'll see that the ellipsis shows up. So you got to kind of have to know that this button's here. I'm guessing it's just a bug and it'll get fixed eventually, but just be aware that that ellipsis will show up when you get close to it. So when I put my cursor close to it, it shows up. If I click the ellipsis, it's then going to ask me, say, hey, do you want to do conditional formatting? Yes, I do. So then we click that option and a new menu window will pop up. So the very first option you get is a color scale, like a gradient. We're not interested in that. we're going to do just a straight rule. So we go to the Format By, and we adjust it to be just the rules. Clicking on rules will then change this evaluation. So I'm going to say when this value is 1, because that's the value of the volume calculation. And then I can go over here and I can adjust the background color. So I will go pick a color off the list here, and we're going to evaluate this based on the number ID from the control column. Now, another thing to note here, it's going to say count. If you select any column, the count will always be 1. We don't want that. We actually want it to be a sum or a max or something along those lines, because we want the actual value that that row is selecting. So I'm going to actually change this to a sum. And then when the value of, actually, we probably should just do max. That'd probably be better. We'll do maximum. Then now when the value is 1, then it will be this color. So now if I hit OK, boom, the background is then automatically shaded. Now, if I switch the colors here, so if I switch the calculation, right? So we're going to select a different item. Selecting 2 now makes that button not be highlighted. And if I select 3, same thing, it isn't highlight. So now I'm going to go back to my volume button just to show you it's working. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it, Control C, Control V, and I'm going to add another button here. Now for this button, we're going to do similar things here. We're going to go to the button text again. We're going to modify this one to be $. And now we will go down here to the formatting of the background. So open the background up. Now this time, you don't have to click the ellipsis. You can see that the color is already a part of the function property. So the ellipsis is still there, but now that we have the function button here, we can just click the function. So clicking on the function, we can now say, okay, when this number is now 2, because this is the second item, this is now okay. And so now if we now toggle through, so item 1, that's volume, item 2, that's $. So when we click on it, we can then have an action happen there. So how do we get the buttons to change the chart and change the slicer? So we'll go back over here to the slicer. I'm going to highlight the slicer. And then what I will do is, now that this is highlighted, we're going to go to the View ribbon. We're going to turn on the Bookmarks panel or pane. So if I click Bookmarks pane, boom, this is the Bookmarks pane. This is all the information around bookmarks. So if we go in here now, I'm going to select item number 1, and then I'm going to snap a bookmark. So I'm going to click the item called Add. Clicking Add makes a new bookmark. And so here I will then say volume, let's just call it number 2, right? So I've already made one of these, so this is a new one. Now, you don't stop here, right? I selected only the slicer visual. Now, it's really important you do this because if I click the ellipsis on volume 2, you can update it, rename it, delete it, or group it with other bookmarks. But what I'm really interested in is the controls properties. These are how it controls what the bookmark will do. So I don't really want to show or hide anything because I'm not. I'm going to turn off the display. So display means turn on the visual or turn off the visual from a display standpoint. I don't need to do that. I don't need to navigate to a page. So I'm just going to click the button and it's, on this page. So I don't need to go to a different page. So I can turn that off too, turning off navigation to the current page. And then this is saying change the data of all the visuals or only my selected visuals. Now that's why I made it really clear note here is I'm selecting only the slicer, and then I'm going to adjust the properties so that it's just selected visuals. So my final properties look like this. I've got data and I have just the selected visuals. That's what I'm going for. So now what I can do is go back to the button, and now we can wire up that bookmark to this button. So here we'll go to the button, clicking on volume. We'll go down here to the property called action, turn that on and open it up like this. Once we've opened up that button, we're going to change the type to bookmark. The bookmark will be volume number 2, like this. And now that we have the bookmark attached, when we click on this button, it should automatically go there. So I'm going to select item number 3, holding Control and clicking the button will then trigger the bookmark, and we go back to volume. Same thing we're going to do for $. So we're going to go back to our slicer. We're going to select item number 2, which should be our calculation for $. Snap a new bookmark. Double click to rename $number 2. and we will then turn off the display, turn off the current page, turn off select all visuals and only use selected. So again, the properties are like this: data display, current page, all visuals turned off, and only selected visuals. Now that we have this bookmark attached, we can then click back on the button, turn back on the actions, configure it to be a bookmark, and now we can do $2. So now I can click on volume, we go to volume, we go to dollars, we go to dollars. Now, this is not appealing to have the slicer on the page or have it showing, but now that we've wired everything together, we don't technically need it anymore. So we can go back over to the selection panel, go over to the slicer icon with a little I, and then we could just turn it off. So turning off the slicer, and now, even though the slicer is not shown on the page, it's still controlling the data. So holding Control will let me click through the two buttons. So that was one of our tips and tricks, popular tips and tricks from 2019. We'll move on to the next one. For this tip and trick, it was one of our most popular blogs was icons upon icons. So many people know that you can add icons into your tables, and we'll do that here. But not only can you add the standard icons that come with Power BI, you can add your own SVG icons as much as you want. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over to the volume column, and we're going to click on the properties. Let me close up some windows here so it gets a little bigger. Let's close the selection window. Okay, clicking on the table here, we're going to click on the paint roller for our formatting options. So clicking on paint roller, and then we're going to bring down here to the option called conditional formatting. Then under conditional formatting, we'll go down to the property called icons. So conditional formatting, then down to the section called icons, turn that on. Now that we're in the icons area, you can adjust these icons directly. There is an option to grab a group of items, and then you can also adjust the individual icons themselves. So, if I wanted to use these icons here, you can go in here and you can adjust different things. Now, by default, there's not a ton of extra icons, and I think I'm actually on a custom theme right here. So let me just go back to a default theme just to make sure that you can see it right. Let me click on the visual here, click on the paint roller, conditional formatting, icons. There we go. Okay, so this looks right. So this right here is the standard set of icons that you get. So you can adjust them right here in the tool. You can pick whatever combination you want. If you want to make them, instead of triangle, square, circle, you can adjust them. Let's make it like the yellow flag, or you can make the green thing a little checkbox if you want. Any kind of combinations you want. Clicking OK will then add them in here. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. You do have to select the column. So I put a conditional formatting on the icons for the ID column. That is found up here at the very top. So we need to adjust that so it's actually on the volumes column. So let's turn those off. We'll go back over to the volume, turn on the icons there, and there we go. There's our icons. Okay, so above this though, let's add our own custom icons. So I have here on my desktop a theme file. So this is something you can download from PowerBI.Tips, and I'll show you where that you can get that. If you go to PowerBI.Tips and go download it's the blog article Icons Upon Icons, and then about halfway down, you can go down here and there's a little download, the icon file, or if you want, you can go right to our products page and get a free download right from there. So just click download and you'll get a copy of it. These are all the new icons that we're presenting. So all of this stuff is new, and this is net new. Each one of those icons are actually defined by some SVG. So inside the file that you'll find this is the information that is contained there. So you have the ability of calling out the name, the description of whatever that item is, and then you have to add in some syntax here, URL, data, blah, 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 and then you can drop in your SVG with a view box and rectangles, and then it will all work appropriately. If I do an Alt-Z here, and it doesn't, this whole section here, the URL section, that's technically the SVG area where you're actually entering in the SVG. So let's turn that wrapping text off so it's a little easier to see. We've got about 50 icons in here so far. I have to give a good shout out to Reed Havens from Havens Consulting out of Seattle. He helped out a lot with getting a lot of these icons in here and making sure this thing all looked really nice and snappy. So great big shout out to Reed. Thank you very much for helping out. If you want to go download the file, you can go get it from PowerBI.Tips. All right, now that we've been playing with the file, let's get the file of those icons inside the report. So to do that, I will go back to Power BI Desktop. We're going to click the little down arrow here in the themes area. So we're going to go to the ribbon that's called View ribbon, and then we're going to click on this little drop down item here. So when we do that, we can then go down here. We can now browse for themes at the bottom part of the page. So if I click Browse for Themes, we'll go down here and Power BI Tips Icons version 3. That's the one I'm going to look for. I'm going to click Open. It says the theme was successfully imported. Great. Thankfully, it did it. And now we can go back to the icon section. So I'll turn them off and then back on. Oh, it doesn't pop up the menu automatically. Click Advanced Controls, and now if I open up these little items, you can see now we have all these new icons. So if I want the Harvey ball things, I can go get those, and I can add those in there as well. So now I can do additional validation on data types. So hit OK, and now boom, I got different types of formatting, and these are all SVG items, so they will scale very well with the size of the visual. So as the visual gets bigger, they're SVG, they're not PNGs or images, so therefore they will automatically have very crisp edges and be able to scale with the visual very cleanly. Okay, that was our second most popular tip and trick from 2019. Let's move over to number 3. So this was one that I'm really passionate about. I love the Power BI visuals that come from Power BI Desktop, but sometimes there's just a couple of use cases where I just can't quite get what I want, or I need to be a little bit more creative with my visual, something a bit more unique or custom. So Microsoft has come up with a project called Charticulator, and the Charticulator project was really good, but it didn't have a really good sharing mechanism. So I took the Microsoft code, forked it, and made my own version. So this is charts.powerbi.tips. So I had to give credit where credit's due. The Charticulator team is absolutely amazing. They did a wonderful job, but I wanted to have a gallery that went along with it. So not only do you get, if you build visuals here, you can actually use the charts gallery here from Power BI Tips as well. So clicking on that as well brings you over to a brand new page. There's a lot of instructional videos here. There are featured visuals that you can go download directly. So these are visuals that the community has built. And then another gentleman whose name is Nick Snap, and I have a little page here just for him. I call it Aw Snap. So Nick Snap is an amazing visual developer in Charticulator. He has tons of stuff that he's coming out with. And so these are some of the contributions that he has done and contributed out to the community. So you can go over there and download his stuff as well. More to come. We're going to keep adding up more visuals on those pages and continually growing that out so that you have a lot of great visuals to pick from. All right. So let's go back over to charts.powerbi.tips, and now we're going to go build a custom visual here. So we're going to go in here. What you do when you typically start with a visual, you're going to add a plot segment. So if I'm going to drop a plot segment in here, and so this defines the canvas. This defines where I'm going to put objects on the page. So next what I can do is I can then go grab a glyph, like a mark, and this mark goes in the glyph area. So by adding the mark, and you have different options, squares, circles, triangles, and shapes, and some lines. But once you've defined that, it plops it down. And for every single data point that you have, you get a data bar for each data point. So I've got maybe like 25 or so data points in here. So each data point that I provide a data set to is automatically here. I can then take my data stuff from my columns defined by my data set here on the left-hand side. So this is my columns of data. I can grab the value of some metric and put that on the height. I can grab the month of my data and put that down below. And then if I want, I can even add additional properties, like I can grab the month and drop it in under the fill. So now I can have colors based on different text properties that I'm applying to my data set. Now, most things you can do in here that you could also do in Power BI. I just made a bar chart that had some stacked columns. Not too many crazy things that are, it looks pretty standard here, right? This is not something I couldn't do in Power BI. However, there are a number of charts that you just can't build in Power BI. So I will show you a few of those. So if I open here, and I'm going to open up some of my more complicated charts, one thing you can't do currently is you can't have dual axes on a y-axis in Power BI Desktop. So the left side axis here is orange, and it represents by the orange line. The right-hand side is a score, like a 120% down to like 1%, and that's represented by the blue line. So I can actually start customizing different things like this. So why do we go through all this effort? Because you can actually take this visual that you build in charts.PowerBI.Tips, export it, and put it back in desktop. So I'll show you that now. So let me minimize this. We're going to go back to, well, let's just do a new one. Just refresh the page here. And we'll start with a clean slate. So let me get some data from our desktop here. So this is how I build custom visuals. I typically start with a blank page, and then I come over to the data that I want, right? So I have a chart table over here, and I'm going to add some numbers. There's some number values and some text. Now this is typically a bar chart or some kind of chart that automatically shows. I don't want that. Instead, I actually just want to build a table. So here's a table. Now, something important to note here is the table has a text and it has numbers. It will automatically aggregate everything for you. So if I take this text and say don't summarize and number, don't summarize, this is my actual data. So I have text and numbers here. So I need multiple data points here, not aggregated. So this is the kind of the data I'm looking for. So this is what I will be using in the charts program. Now that I have that visual done, I'll click on the ellipsis, and then we'll click on the button called Export Data. Exporting the data will then save a desktop file of a CSV. So I'll save it here to my desktop, hit save, and I've just exported this data. At this point in time, I leave Power BI Desktop, and we head over to the charts program. So up over here in charts, we go over here and grab this little button that says replace the data. So that's this replace data button up here. If I click this, it's going to look for a CSV file that I just published. So I just have one on my desktop. I'm going to go grab the data CSV file. I'm going to hit open, and there we go. So now I have my two new columns, just as I had it in my data set with text and numbers. We can do the same thing again. I can grab my mark, put it on the glyph. There's all my different data points. And then if I want the text, I can put the text down here at the x-axis. Now it's grouping by those items. And then if I want the height of the bar to adjust, I can bring the number and apply it to the height. So there's my random data that I made. And if I want to color them, right, so maybe I want to have colors by the text elements, I can go back to the text and drag it down to the shape item where it says fill down here at the very bottom. And when I drop that in, there's my colors. You can customize this further with, you can add a legend if you need. So click a button. You have to click on this is kind of a hidden feature. If you are in the colors area and you click the bind data, clicking bind data will then add or remove the legend. You can also adjust all the colors, all kinds of extra things in here as well. So you can click the color and there's tons of different colors in here. They have Power BI color palette, the old one. They have the universal color palette, material UI palette, and this color brewer one as well. So you can kind of pick tons of colors, really lots of wide options. And one of the things that this tool does that is very different than Power BI, there's a lot easier mechanisms to make transparent colors. So another thing I can do here is, let's say the higher the bar, the less transparent I want to make it. So smaller bars have more transparency. So I can actually grab this number column and add it to the opacity of each of the objects. And it's doing the average of the number. Let's see if I can do median. There we go. So if I change that, so now the shades of the bars are now changing shade according to their height. So a full heighted bar would be the solid color, and then everything less than that would be some lower amount. So again, tons of really cool features and options you can do with this program. I really, really like it. I'd highly recommend you use it. I will also point out it's kind of a learning curve. It's fairly steep. So if you go look up PowerBI.Tips on YouTube, there's a whole video series I've done around how to build basic charts, and I'm now starting to tap into more complicated charts on YouTube as well. So look up charts.PowerBI.Tips on YouTube, and you'll find a bunch of great instructional videos there as well. Okay, so now that we're done with this, we can then export it. So I'll go up here to this little icon all the way up here on the right. We'll click on Export, and then we'll click on the button called Power BI Custom Visual. So here we can name things or adjust things if we want. One of the things I will say is there's a bug. If you use the visual name with a space in it, you will get an error. So you need to make sure your visual name has no spaces. I learned that one the hard way. So clicking export, download it, and then it'll drop that visual down to your desktop. And so here is my custom visual file that I didn't have to write any code for. So let's go back over to Power BI. And because I'm lazy, I'm going to copy this table and I'm going to paste it back here on the page because I'm going to change this into my new custom chart. We're going to click on the ellipsis over here on the right-hand side. Clicking on the ellipsis will then open up a little menu dialog box. We're going to import from file. This is my custom visual. My custom visual, I will now open and import it. It was successfully imported. Great. Now I can then click on this item and then click the icon here, and now it will change it. Now, this is the part that's a bit tricky. There is this property called granularity. If you noticed in the Charticular program, I loaded the data and I had multiple values for the letter A, multiple values for the letter B, and values attached to them. The grain of the data, how detailed the data is broken out, is what is defined by this granularity level. Power BI by default will auto aggregate stuff together using some sort of sum across the numbers. So by defining the granularity, we're able to define what is the lowest number or lowest value I need in my data tables. So I will now add the text column to the text field and then the number column to the number field. And there we go. Now I've got my chart back here in Power BI and things are still interactive. So if I click on elements in this chart, it goes back to the rest of Power BI desktop and lets you select things there as well. I can also select, if I wanted to, I could select things outside of the chart and have it interact with the chart. So if I go over here and let's add another slicer real quick, drop a slicer on the page, and then I will add my text field to the slicer. Now if I click column B, my chart automatically redefines itself and draws column B. So this gives you like almost unlimited possibilities. Everything is pretty much dynamic, and you can move anything where you want all over the table. So huge feature. Really like this tool. I think it's a really big win for people who are going to just get highly customized or highly stylized visuals or need some additional custom visual stuff without having to write a lot of code. Okay, those are my 3 top tips and tricks from 2019. And I kind of have one extra bonus item that I'll throw in here as well. So the last bonus item here is for those who follow PowerBI.Tips, we're pretty much known for building color themes. That's like one of the things that we do. We work with them a lot. A lot of improvements have been made in Power BI Desktop to help you build those. So I'm going to go through a little bit about themes in general, and then I'll show you this new custom tool that we just came out with last month. And it's going to get better. We're just releasing it, so there's going to be a lot more properties coming, but I want to point this out as well. So if you want to adjust the theme of your report, you can change the data. Let's go back here to page 1 where we have a bar chart. You can change the color of the data by using these automatically built-in themes. So if I click on these different themes, you'll notice that the data is changing here. So if I click on a different theme, the data also changes, and a lot of other settings are changing as well. So the background's changing, the color of the filter panel is changing. Sometimes there's labels that are added or not added, or the text color of those labels are changing. So this is what themes are doing at a high level. Now, if you want to adjust those themes, you can. So let's go over here. Let's just pick one of the themes. I'm going to pick City Park theme. And now what you can do is inside this City Park theme, you can go in here and then you can additionally customize the current theme. So clicking the drop-down window, clicking on the button called Customize Current Theme. When you do that, you're brought to this new window. And this is called text classes. These are additional properties that you can modify that span between multiple visuals. So if I adjust the text properties here, I have text properties here that I can adjust for different things. And this is just giving me a notification that I have adjusted this file. It's an older file, so it's not letting me adjust it. Newer files wouldn't have that. If you go here to the visual section, you can change the color here. This can change properties of your visual. So the visual background color, I can change that to whatever I want, and then apply and save. And then those global properties will be applied across the entire report. Now, granted, there are a lot of properties in this dialog box. Not everything is there. So if you go into the visual itself and click on the window or the paint roller, you can see there are tons of options. And there'll be tons of options under the x-axis. All these options are not included in that general selection criteria. Those are just general properties across everything. There's a lot of great documentation on it. But if you want to go further than that, if you want to continue enhancing things, that's where themes.powerbi.tips takes over. So let me pull up my browser here again, wherever it went. Let's go back to the theme builder. So this is the brand new version of themes from PowerBI.Tips. You have a color picker up here at the top. You can just kind of pick random colors that you want. So if you click add, it will automatically build out a color palette for you. So you can kind of arbitrarily pick some colors that you want by clicking add. You can adjust the hex code up here if you want it automatically, and it will automatically select colors for you verbatim. Let me adjust this again. You can add in individual hex codes. So one thing that I really like to do is I like to have a selection of pre-made or comma separated hex codes. So I'm using Google Chrome here for this one. So if I open up a new browser tab here and we just go surfing, so maybe these are images that I'm interested in, and maybe there's a graphic that I want to use in some of my theming files. So I love the sunset one. This is kind of cool. It's got some bright yellows and some other stuff. So what I can do is I have this add-in called Palette Creator. So what I'm using there, oh, it didn't show me the name. Let's see if it'll let me see the name. No, it doesn't. Okay. Palette Creator, I'll just click on it real quick here. There it is. Palette Creator is what I'm using. So it's an add-in I put in Chrome. And what that does is it allows me to right-click on any image on the internet, and I can say Palette Creator, create an 8-color palette. So when I click that, it goes there and it analyzes the image. It boils it down to some basic colors, and then I can just click the copy button. So clicking copy grabs all of these colors in that palette. I go back over to the theme builder, drop that Control V by pasting back in, and I can paste all that text right in there. Now if I click add, all those color properties are automatically added into my visual. So then I can readjust them so that there's a couple visuals that have high contrast in the beginning. Let's get rid of this one, and the green is a little bit loud. And then we can adjust other colors as well. So this now defines my color palette. If I ever want to adjust or modify them, you can actually click on the color itself. So clicking the color will auto adjust the color palette up here, and then you can continue to refine or tweak your color a little bit and then re-add it back to your palette and then remove the one you don't want. So you can reorder them as well by grabbing them up, dragging them up and down here additionally. Once you're done with selecting the palette, then it's on to the making properties happen. So now you can click on the next ribbon at the top of the page called Properties. Clicking on Properties, now you come to a new page where we have all the visuals on the page, and you can click on a given visual. Granted, all the properties are not there yet. I'm still working on it, so bear with me. I'm getting them out as fast as I can. There's a lot of development work to get to this stage. But now that we're here, we can actually open up and we can start adjusting properties inside this area. So these are all the properties you could adjust in those drop-down menus that come from Power BI Desktop. One thing I want to point out here that's really cool about this tool that you don't get anywhere else is when you click the selected color button, clicking this color button brings the palette you already created back into the tool and then gives you the same kind of shading that Microsoft Power BI Desktop gives you. So you can pick a solid color, or you can pick a portion of that color that is then driven off of that color palette. Once you're all done, you can, let me adjust another property here. You can click download the theme. You have to name it Mike's, let's just do Mike's theme. Hit download, and there's my theme file. So now I can open that up, and then you can see what is inside this theme file. I'll format this for you so you can see it. So here are my data colors here at the top, and then these are the styles that I made in here. One of the things that's key to note is this expression thing is unique to this tool. You don't see this anywhere else. This is something that I actually looked inside the Power BI files that was making in order to get this expression-based formatting out. So this basically picks the color ID that's in the color array and then applies a percentage, darker or lighter, -1 to 1, on top of it. So this gives you almost infinite color adjusting capabilities if you want it. So I'm going to close that file. And then we're going to go back over to Power BI Desktop. And now we can go back over here and we can then load in our color theme. So clicking the drop-down button again over here on the left, and then browse for themes. And then there is Mike's theme that I just downloaded. I'll click open on that, and there we go. And the report was just changed, and now my color theme should now be applied to my color data set here. And if I add some additional colors to this one, let's add a legend here off of the ID. There's my color palette pretty in right there. And then all the other properties you adjust will be automatically applied to the visuals as well. And that's it. So that's it for the tips and tricks. Let's go minimize this thing. And let's go back over to this one. And we go back to the presentation. So that's it. I'm going to kind of look for questions and we'll see what's going on there. So let's go look through some questions. What do we have? Any good questions at this point? Got a lot of questions. Okay. So I'm just going to read through some of the questions that we have here and answer what I can. So the question is, will the session be recorded? Yes, the session will be recorded and it will be available on YouTube in about a week or so. So stay tuned for that. Something questions about dialing in. Is there a way for the tile to change to match the type? Yes, you can do custom formatting on the tiles as well. So when we were doing the original demo around formatting, I'll see if I can do one real quick here. I might need an additional measure. So let me get out of the PowerPoint. So in the trick number 1 here, we were actually adjusting this chart. You should be able to dynamically adjust the title as well. So over here in the title, there is another ellipsis. Excuse me. Oh, you can't see it now. It's not covered. Hold on. Boy, why'd my there we go. Come back out. All right, let's try that again. Hover over that. There. So there's my little ellipsis. So the title text, the title that's on the title of the chart, you can also adjust that with a formula. So clicking that ellipsis, you can apply additional conformatting here. And this is where you need to build another measure, like a selected value. And then it would show you the text that you want to apply to that very first item. So you could do like a field value, and then you could pick some sort of measure coming from here. Actually, we would probably just do text, first text. Let's just try that. We'll hit OK. So, oh, it's doing first text of the wrong thing. Let's try that again. We'll go back here to the functions. I don't want the first text from the charts. I want it from the control table and the type. OK, there we go. So now if I click volume, the chart title changes. If I click dollars, the chart changes to dollars and then margin as well. So that also is changing additionally. And the reason my button formatting is gone now because I changed the theme file and it did not like that. So let's go back over here to default. Maybe that'll bring it back. Nope. That's how you would change a title as well. All right, let's keep going. Would that hide all slicers if you have others on the page? No. So on this option here, so page number 2 here. So when I was hiding that slicer, because I selected the selection window and I clicked the individual slicer, that's just this one slicer. So the only one I'm selecting is what's hiding and showing on that individual item. So it turns that thing off, and it goes away, and then it's just that one slicer. You can group things together, so you can turn off the entire group of things. I highly recommend getting familiar with groups if you haven't. They're super helpful, and they make things manipulating, like hiding and showing elements, much, much simpler. Is this video available after presentation? Yes, we did answer that. That's be on YouTube in about a week. Oh, hello from Snowy Buffalo. Could the colors be changed within Power BI after you import the custom viz into it? No, it cannot. So if you're theming your custom visuals and you're doing color palette selection, the colors will be unique to what you do in the custom visual. The custom visual does not adhere to your color palettes that are inside Power BI Desktop. So when you're picking color palettes, you want to make sure you're doing a good job clicking and picking the same things. Great question. Well, there's a lot more questions coming in now. Let's see here. I have another one. Can you drag? Oh, so this is another one. Can you drag? Dave is asking, can you drag other data points to that chart? Yes, you can. So the chart that I made at charts.PowerBI.Tips is just a very simple one. You can build as many visual elements as you can. I would recommend go watch some of the YouTube videos on how to build things in here. It's a bit of an art, and it's not super straightforward. So this data set is very simple, but I could add additional elements in here as well. I could drop a circle in here, and then I could change the circle size based on the value of the number here. I could also, let's adjust it so you can see the color. You can change the color of that circle to be something else. You can add any number of items. And if you want something that's still driven off of the data, but an independent chart piece, you can actually add additional charts. So this is one chart type. I can add other plot segments in here as well at weird angles and other things. So I can do all kinds of other crazy stuff. So this is another plot segment I can add in there, or I can add another glyph and a different plot segment. So here's another plot segment I can add here. I can drop in more dots, and I can now change the size of those things, of those dots, and we probably need to scale this a bit higher so you can see the difference here. Let's go average number, range, let's go 0 to 7. Well, maybe not. 2, 3. There you go. So then you can adjust things there as well. So this is a separate graph plot that you can do additional things. We can even change that so it matches the same color of the text. So you can do all kinds of other crazy plotting things if you want. Disassociated plot types using some of the same data. There's a lot of possibility in there. Again, it can get really complex. It just helps to play around with the tool. Definitely watch some YouTube videos to get started on this one. Oh, look at that. Yeah, amazing work. This is like Tableau-like control and customization for Power BI. That's exactly where I think this fits. I totally agree with you. Do you have any training or documentation about these on your site? Yes. So if you go over to the charts gallery, the charts gallery has some initial videos about how to do some of those things. Also, if you go over to the Power BI Tips channel and look at my YouTube channel, there's a bunch of other really great videos there as well. I have a whole series under playlists that are dedicated to charts.powerbi.tips. So I have 5 more videos that are just dedicated. I don't want to play this. I have 5 more videos that are just building charts. And so you can just watch me build charts. You can kind of follow along. Some of the charts are very easy. Some of the charts are very complicated. So you can kind of start seeing how the charts work and what kind of buttons you need to click and how do the functionalities work as well. I also have some full documentation on the tool as well that can also come out. What I'll also point out as well is this is a fork from Charticulator. So the original program is this program. Control 1 here. So this is the original program that I kind of forked from Microsoft off of GitHub. If you go here to the Getting Started page, there's also some really good documentation here as well if you want to go in the weeds. There is a caveat. Power BI does not do these little linking properties. So I'll say that when you're building things for this Charticulator program, there's one thing you just can't do, and it's, let me see the plot. I'll show you the plot types it can't do. This one. So this chord chart, you actually need additional data properties that link one property to another property via the line. It's called linking. That's something that has no concept in Power BI. When you present a data set to the custom visual, there's just no similar mechanism. So if you're going to try and build things like chord charts or things that are linking 2 data points or 2 disparate data points together, you don't have that ability inside Charticulator. So just want to point that out. I definitely tried to make it happen. Okay. Let's see here. Any other? There is no extra fee or subscription for doing charts at Power BI Tips. Everything's free. So if you go here, you visit the page, use the content till you're blue in the face. So everything's free. You can go use it for as much as you want. Oh yeah, so another one from David. So when we built a chart here in charts.powerbi.tips, if you go back over to desktop, you can change how this visual is interacting. So if I go back over here to item number 3, here I use text and numbers to build out my chart. Now I know this is text category is just like a categorical value, and the number is just a numerical value. So technically, I don't even need to use this data set. I could use something else entirely different. So I can actually go to the sales table. I can bring ID over. Let's get rid of these other things. And I can bring, well, ID is the grain, right? That's the smallest part of my file, my records. And then I could bring in, well, I'll make sure dollars are there too. Then I could say for the number, I want dollars. And then for IDs, I want that to be my text. So now these are all the IDs of the file, and these are the total dollars that are mounting on each of those values. So even though I'm using a different type of chart with different data, it still graphs it all. So I typically just start from You know, when I'm building these charts though, from my personal preference, I'm usually building them for a very specific data set, and it's something, again, kind of one-off, very custom. I'm not trying to build a bunch of generic charts. So because it's kind of custom, that's why I'm typically building the text box. Let me shrink these up here so it's bigger. That's why I typically am building a table here on the left-hand side, exporting the data out, and then using that exact data to build my chart. That way I know when I come back to Power BI desktop, the chart will behave the way I expect it to, and it shows the same visual representation as I did in Chart Step Power BI.Tips. Another great question. Awesome. Looks like everyone else is doing pretty good. No other. Oh, another one question. Yeah, yep, the gallery as well. So there is no licensing for the gallery, all free. Again, it's just an open source project that I did. You can go use that all for free as much as you want. All right, I think that's about a wrap. There's no more questions. So thank you guys very much for attending. And we're just done a little bit early. I'll give you 10 minutes back to your day. Have a great lunch and a good night, I guess, if you're getting ready to go to bed. Then thank you for coming in your evenings, and we'll see you on another YouTube blog.